Today I had the honor of interviewing Sheila Berner Kennedy just after the Women's March here in Chicago. Sheila was born and raised in Illinois. She is one of 5 children born into Mr. and Mrs. Robert L. Berner of Winnetka. After graduating from New Trier, Sheila attended Boston College and later Northwestern University Law School. While at Boston College, she met her future husband, Chris Kennedy. They married and settled here in Illinois. Sheila practiced environmental law at Sidley Austin before leaving to raise 4 children. Sheila served as a volunteer attorney for the Legal Assistance Foundation and was appointed by the Illinois Supreme Court in 2011 to serve on the Illinois Board of Admissions to the bar. She is a board member of the Shriver National Center on Poverty Law, and alongside her husband, she served as a board member of the Greater Chicago Food Depository. Sheila and Chris were concerned that not everyone had access to affordable and healthy food, so they founded a community-based nonprofit called Top Box Foods in 2012. Its purpose was to offer a variety of healthy boxes of food at affordable prices in underserved communities. Sheila is the executive director of Top Box Foods. Enjoy the interview. Mrs. Kennedy, thank you so much for agreeing to sit down with me here today. Could you just tell our viewers your name and how you're related to Chris before we get into the question?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Jay. I'm Sheila Kennedy, and I'm Chris's wife, and we just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary this year.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
So what is it like to be a spouse of an Illinois candidate for governor?
That's a good question. It's not boring, I would say that. You know, we're traveling all over the state. We meet incredible people, see interesting things. People have a lot of passion. So I feel lucky to be the wife of the candidate. I have a full-time job, so I am still working at my job during the day, but I feel fortunate that I get to listen to Chris speak on the weekends and at night, and it makes me feel proud.
So how has campaigning for Chris and with Chris change your family dynamic, and how have your children kind of been more actively involved in government and politics recently?
So we have 4 children, and 1 is in college, not in the state, but 3 are here, and they live in Chicago. So all 3, while they have other interests and jobs, all 3 of them are working on the campaign. And I think there really hasn't been much of a change because they've always been hardworking, they've always been passionate. We've always been a close family. We spend a lot of time together. So this is just time toward the goal of getting Chris elected. But mostly I feel proud of the kids. I really do. Our son Chris is taking time off from his job to help manage the campaign. And Kate is a graduate student, and she's spending all the time when she's not in class on the campaign. And Sarah's a teacher in Englewood, and she goes to school at night, and she does campaigning. Wow. So they're such hard workers, and I'm just so proud of them, really.
So getting Chris's message out is obviously very important. Overall, why do you think Chris is the best candidate for governor?
I think Chris is the best candidate for governor because he is a person who makes his own decisions. He's not a person who is going to be told what to do. He stands on his own 2 feet. I think he's the best person to create change in Illinois. I think he's a person who listens to others, and then when he makes a decision, he's very decisive. He's compassionate. He's a hard worker. And he's had a career that's been deep, and it's given him a lot to contribute to the state of Illinois. All the experiences he's had leading other people, bringing people together. He'd be an excellent, excellent governor.
What are a couple distinguishing factors between Chris and his opponents that you might think that voters should or need to know?
Well, I think there's a couple. I think Chris is the only candidate in the race who is not beholden to anybody. He's the only candidate who is an independent actor. So he is not going to have to answer to anybody. He is going to make decisions that are best for the people of Illinois and not best for, you know, a particular person or somebody who has power and wants to stay in power. And another thing, Chris is a man who is unbought and unbossed, and he is not beholden to Mike Madigan or anybody. except the people of the state of Illinois if given the chance.
Chris has a reputation of being hardworking. He rolls his sleeves up. He gets the job done. There's no job that's too big or too small. What are your thoughts on that? How does that square with you?
You're right, Jay. Chris is one of the hardest workers I know. His work ethic is second to none. Chris's career was mostly in business. For 25 years, he ran the merchandise mart. He brought more businesses to Illinois than any other company in the state, 5,000 businesses while he was working there. Chris also was the chairman of the Illinois Convention and Tourism Bureau. So he helped with the economic life of Illinois in that way. Chris was the chairman of the University of Illinois and led that after a scandal and, led it to great success. And all while having leadership roles like that, he had many others at the time. At the same time, he's always been working toward advancing social justice. So he's worked on behalf of the homeless. Was the chairman of the board of the Greater Chicago Food Depository. I think it's a combination of all these experiences, leading big organizations, leading small organizations, trying to make change incrementally and in big, huge chunks. All of these have required him to bring different kinds of people together and build a consensus so that they can move forward. And in the state of Illinois, that's what's missing.
Yeah.
Nobody now is making anybody come together to pass any kind of bills. I mean, it's a real roadblock there, the inability to create consensus, and I think that's what Chris excels at.
All right. Is there anything in particular that you would want to tell voters that they might not already know about Chris to kind of make them want to vote for him even more?
Well, they might not know that he's a great husband, and they might not know that he's a great father. In fact, he makes me a better parent. He makes all of us better in our family, and I think in his larger family too. He's someone that lives a thoughtful and intentional life, and he's the best man I know.
So as you said earlier, you have a full-time job. Could you tell us a little bit about Top Box Foods?
Sure. Top Box Foods is a nonprofit organization that I actually started with Chris, and we started it in 2012. And we started it because we thought that food deserts and the fact that there are food deserts in Chicago is appalling, and we wanted to do something about it. So we created Top Box Foods. It's a nonprofit, and we create access to fresh produce and really good meat and chicken and fish in areas that don't have regular grocery stores. So this is mostly on the south side and west side of Chicago, and also in Rockford and places up near Wisconsin. We create access by partnering with lots of different organizations in the community, a huge network of churches and housing and schools and healthcare facilities, and they put the word out to their patients or their residents or their members or their people that Top Box Foods is delivered to their community, where they otherwise wouldn't have the ability to get this stuff once a month. And then they become customers of ours. Since 2012, we've served 10,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Is there anything in specific that Top Box Foods has taught you about the campaign and about you and Chris that might be valuable to Illinois right now?
I mean, I think just the fact that we created a social business, a nonprofit social business, as a solution to one of society's problems translates well to governing a state. So I think just the process of what we're doing with Top Box is something that would translate well into governing. But I think I've learned that oftentimes people who are getting their food in a food pantry or who need to stretch their dollars, I found through a life of working in social justice, I was a lawyer and I practiced poverty law at the Legal Assistance Foundation, and I do a lot of work with law and policy organizations that promote social justice. And what I've learned over the years is that people find themselves in a position of needing help when one catastrophe happens, when one child gets sick and they might have to stay home and they lose their job, or somebody dies and then they have to stay home, or when transportation doesn't work anymore for them and they are late to work and they lose their job. And for many people, circumstances that really, you can be a hard worker, you can be wanting a better life and really pursuing a better life, and it could just be one thing that prevents you from doing it and needing extra assistance. And I think our state ought to not penalize people, and we ought to help people.
Right, I agree. You have been supporting Chris and campaigning alongside him since day one. Is there a favorite memory that you have of the campaign so far?
I really like doing the parades. I liked the Gay Pride Parade a lot. I thought that the joy and the camaraderie and the support along that parade was just incredible and inspiring. We marched in a parade in South Chicago, in that neighborhood, like the 10th Ward. And I really liked the diversity of that ward. I mean, it was one of the most diverse wards that I've seen. So I liked really getting to know another community through a parade. Another thing I liked is I was at a meeting in the basement of a church and on the south side, and the pastor invited a 16-year-old girl up, and so she went up and she was going to sing a song. And she sang an opera version of Ave Maria.
Oh, wow.
And it was the most beautiful, beautiful voice I've ever heard. And right there on the south side of Chicago in a church basement. It was incredible. It was such a beauty.
Oh, wow, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
Mrs. Kennedy, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me here today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.